we've lived through different transitions of before and after times. You may have lived through transition from before the internet to after the internet, before cell phones, depending on your age, fax machines or GPS, right? We can all think about these times. And as I've talked about before, we're in this transition from the before the AI times to the after the AI times. And I spend a lot of time thinking about how is this going to change our work? How is this going to change our lives? How is this going to change our society? And it seems like we're at a pivotal point in our society where maybe we're not ready for this technology, or it gives me a lot of concern about it being rolled out as it is right now. And I just want to say that as I'm thinking about this and as you're thinking about the future of AI and how it's going to affect your life, no one really knows what this looks like. And so I would be cautious of anyone that comes in and says, I know the future of AI in society. And so, full disclosure, I don't know either. I don't know what this technology really means and how it's going to exactly play out. The world seems very unpredictable right now. And so, what I'm trying to do and what I encourage you to do as well is just try to navigate this by learning about what it is and being intentional about where you're saying yes and where you're setting boundaries. But one of the things I am seeing right now is using these meeting note takers and transcripts and kind of how work is changing for myself and these other people that are kind of at the forefront of this technology. And why this is such a big deal is because I think the nature of work itself is changing. The speed of delivery is changing, and then how we actually create value or deliverables for whatever you're doing. So today the goal is to talk about AI meeting note takers. You may have seen these show up in meetings. How you can use an AI assistant for creating deliverables based on the meeting note takers, and then how we can use all of this to create an instant website using an instant website generator, which is not very good on its own, but is incredibly powerful when you combine multiple AI tools together. And so what I've been experimenting with most recently is kind of thinking about how you chain different AI systems together for even more kind of advanced work. And so what I'm going to show you today is the most powerful way that I am using AI. This is the thing that I find the most value in. And I don't know if you've had these experiences recently with using AI where it's literally jaw dropping, where you're like, oh my God, what does this mean? I feel like that's a very common reaction when using AI of just what does this mean for blank, right? And this kind of technique that I'm about to show you today is an example of something where I was just oh wow, this changes everything about how work happens. And so it all starts with these AI meeting note takers, and you've probably seen them. In fact, I just kicked one out of this meeting. And so you've probably seen them showing up in your meetings. And so what are they, right? So what are meeting note takers? Meeting note takers are essentially an AI bot system that shows up automatically oftentimes in any virtual meeting that you have. So if you have a virtual meeting on your calendar, whether or not it's Zoom or Teams or Google Meets, these systems are designed to automatically show up and start taking notes for you. But it really goes a lot further than that. And what I found for myself is using these meeting note takers is the number one biggest positive impact that a nonprofit can use. This is the number one biggest positive impact for individuals and for organizations. So when I'm suggesting how to start using AI for organizations, basically my top two suggestions are get a meeting note taker, and there are new ethical questions that we'll talk about. And number two is start using your voice to talk to the AI. Those are the biggest two immediate leaps that you can make. And so there are three suggestions for these tools. There's lots of different ones out there. The one that I use is called Fathom. So it's fathom.video. It's free. The free service is really good. And then there's paid stuff where you can do more advanced stuff where it pulls out some more detailed information that you might want. Fireflies.ai is really popular. And then oftentimes people are just using the Zoom AI companion because it's already integrated in the tool. So if you're already a Zoom user, then it's already kind of just built in. So My suggestion is use whatever is easiest. This has huge advantages, and I'll talk about why this is so useful for you and your organization. But it also, like everything that we deal with when it comes to AI, there are new ethical considerations that we've really never had to consider before. The first step is just using the default tools as they are, right? So you have this meeting note taker. They're very simple. It automatically comes into the meeting note take and into your meeting, and it will automatically make a summary and key takeaways from a meeting. So if I go look at a meeting, here I'm in my Fathom, and this is an impromptu. I think this is actually one of the other training sessions that I've done with you all. And so in here I've got a summary, and it's saying here are my AI best practices, here's the future of AI for nonprofits, here are the next steps I'm suggesting, and it will also pull out, this is another meeting that I was in, it'll also pull out all the action items. So I have some different information that I can get, and it will automatically, if you choose, email all this information out to all the attendees. So everybody's seeing what the summary is and what the key takeaways are. So that on alone is very useful because you can at least just have clarity on like, what did we even talk about this in meeting? Now the second thing that's I find to be even more useful is it automatically extracts the action items from the meeting. So if I say, I'm gonna do this, and Lindsay's gonna do this, and Shenandoah is gonna do this, then it will create these action items over here of like, this is who said they're gonna do what, right? And I can actually go in here and check these on or off on whether or not I did them, right? So that's really useful too because it just increases accountability for everybody in the meeting, right? How many meetings do you ever, some people are scribbling handwritten notes and then you maybe follow up, maybe you don't remember who said they're gonna do what, and there's a lot of confusion after the meeting of who said they're gonna do what. The other reason, or what the other way that I use this is, say I have a second meeting with somebody, oftentimes 10 minutes, 30 minutes before that meeting, I will review the last meeting, right? I'll pull up the summary and I'll say, okay, what did we talk about? What are the action items? Am I missing some of those? Like, do I need to apologize at the beginning of this meeting, or are we gonna kick things right off? And what are those maybe little details of like, oh yeah, we talked about like, their dog. So do I wanna like, it just kind of helps jog my memory and helps keep me accountable afterwards as well. So that's really useful. The other thing it has is a question and answer system built in. So if I go to one of these meetings, so I've got my summary, I've got transcript, we'll talk about that and why that's actually so powerful. And we have this ask Fathom. So now I can go in here and say, I can start to ask questions and it will search the transcript to just answer my questions. Then I'll say, what were my best practices for using AI? So best practices based on the transcript. These are things you've probably heard me say. Give super clear instructions, really read and reflect, provide feedback to the AI. Talking with your voice is really, really, really powerful. This kind of just leans into that even more, and I'll talk about that. And then the most important thing, I'll just say this every time I talk about AI, every time I'm talking to groups, you have to know what good looks like. Your job when using AI is to understand what are you trying to do and what is a good result that you're trying to like steer the AI towards. So this question and answer system can be really useful for like, who said what? What did I say I was gonna do? Even outside of the action items, you can start to like question and answer against this transcript. So why is this so helpful? Even just this alone as the default system. Well, one, it increases clarity for everybody. Everybody knows who said they're gonna do what. Everybody knows what the meeting was about. There can also be, I'm starting to see this more and more, where maybe you don't really need to be in the meeting, but you need to know about the meeting. So oftentimes executives maybe have like 3 or 4 meetings booked at the same time that they wish they could go to. And so what some folks are doing are sending their meeting note takers to some of the meetings, and then they're attending other meetings because they can only literally be in one place with their physical self. And so this kind of gives you the ability to almost be in multiple places at once. So if you're that busy, then this can be a useful way to attend multiple meetings. The second reason is it increases accountability for everyone, for just who said they're going to do what and when. But there's even a bigger shift and even a kind of bigger idea. And that's the fact that you get to be more present in meetings. So one of my personal pet peeves was being in a meeting and nobody's taking notes. Nobody's taking notes. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, what are we, just sitting around having a cup of coffee, just chit-chatting, right? Like, what are we doing here if we're not, like, here to make decisions and move things forward? Now, I do love a good chit-chat, but, like, if I'm in a meeting and I'm working, I want that meeting to be effective. So I'm either trying to deliver information, I'm trying to receive information, I'm trying to delegate something, I'm trying to make key decisions. I want that meeting to be a productive use of not only my time, but everybody's time. And so with these meeting note takers, I know that the meeting details, all the details are getting captured. And so that allows me to be more present in the meeting, because I kind of turned into the default meeting note taker because nobody else was doing it. So I ended up doing it. And so these tools allow me to be more present in the meeting, knowing that all these details are getting captured. So maybe the question is, like, do I even need to take notes anymore? And so my answer to that is yes. And here's why. Before, when I was taking notes in meetings, I was focused on all the details. Like, what are the details of the meeting that I need captured? And I could never actually keep up. So really what I'm doing is I'm scribbling some shorthand, or maybe I'm just like looking at the camera, so it's like I'm faking eye contact while I'm just like frantically typing, trying to capture as many details. I can't capture them all. And so then after the meeting, I'm trying to like remember to like add the details and then send my meeting notes out afterwards. With AI meeting note takers capturing all the details, I still take notes, but now I take notes based on big ideas that I have, or feelings, or questions, things that aren't captured in the transcript. And so now I can kind of take my meeting note taking up to the next level by capturing kind of a higher level of abstraction and thinking and critical thinking than just trying to capture the meeting notes details so we even have a copy of those. And so I've seen a shift for myself, and this is how I'm taking, changing how I'm taking notes, and I'm seeing other people do this as well. And so this is just kind of like level one. But one of the other things that these systems do is they make a full transcript. So I can scroll down. This is me. I think this is I'm presenting, right? So it's just me talking the whole time. But say I look at this conversation, I go to the transcript, and right, we're having a back and forth conversation. So right out initially, you might think like, well, that's not very useful because I'm not going to go back and read the transcript, right? Like same thing with this video. Like it does create a full video of the entire meeting, which is a little intrusive in my opinion. But why is this useful? Well, it's useful because the transcript is where like the gold is. The transcript is where all the juicy details are. And remember, we're using multiple chains of AI tools together, right? So even though I'm not going to reread all the transcript details, the details in the transcript, AI can use that for kind of next level processing. So again, thinking about chaining these systems together. So I'm always thinking, every time I'm dealing with AI, I'm always thinking kind of old school and new school. Old school meetings, right? It's like we sit around and everybody talks and nobody takes notes and then nothing really happens. That's old school meetings. What's new school? New school is, or old school, just kind of lean into this, right? We talk about doing the work. What's everybody going to do this week? So on Monday, you have the weekly check-ins, like what are we going to do, right? And then you have hours of follow-up, which people may not do. And then you kind of have this like, let's circle back on that. Let's circle back on that as the work gets done. And all these different communications that are happening, these delays are just delaying the end thing you're trying to do. and just kind of making everybody frustrated. So the new school way is in the meeting, you're actually doing the real work. You're getting, not just talking about doing the work, but you're like digging in deeper and deeper and deeper into doing the actual work. And so you're discussing not just the high level stuff, but you're actually getting really, really into the details. You're making those decisions. And then the real magic happens when the AI creates the deliverable based on the transcript. So the AI does the work based on the transcript. All right, so how would this work if I just gave an example? So maybe you're at a nonprofit and you're planning your next gala. So you have your gala planning meeting. And so old school was like, okay, well, we need to like email all the vendors. So Sarah's going to email all the vendors. And somebody needs to make a timeline and like figure out, like make a Gantt chart for when, all these key decisions need to be made. So that way our gala can go off in the fall with no hiccups, right? We know where those points of no return are. That's old school. New school is, okay, we want to email these vendors and we want to ask these questions. So you're getting like a level of going in deeper into actually talking about it. Now all those details are in the transcript. And maybe when you're making the Gantt chart, instead of just saying like, okay, like if somebody needs to make the Gantt chart, you actually talk about those details, right? You're saying, okay, well, this needs to happen by this date, and this needs to happen by this date, and this thing is contingent on this thing, but not that thing. So you're like getting into that next level of details, and then you just say things like, AI, make the Gantt chart based on the transcript. Or you could say, AI, write the emails to the vendors based on all the details that we had in the transcript. All right, so let's see it in action. And so what I do, this is how I work oftentimes because I'm an AI consultant. I do a lot of trainings. So what I'll do is I will take this entire transcript, right? And I'm going to go to ChatGPT, and I have custom. You can do this within standard ChatGPT, but I'm going to do it in a custom GPT, and just saves me kind of writing instructions. And let me find my information extractor. So I should have it here somewhere. My custom proposal writer, information extractor. That's for deep research. Also deep research. Thank you all for your patience. I should have had this pulled up beforehand, but I was prepping right before I got here. Where is my introduction email writer? Let's see. You can see all these are all the AI assistants that I've built. Meeting agenda makers, which we should also talk about. Oops, where is that? Job description creators. That one's helpful for the HR folks that are trying to hire. We'll put it in our project outline developer. So I'm going to talk to it, and because it's not as trained, I'm going to prep it a little bit. So I'm going to give you a full transcript based on a training that I did for AI for nonprofits. And so I'm going to give you, your input is going to be a full transcript of me talking for an hour. And your first step, all I want you to do is come up with the different sections and topics that I talked about. You don't fill in the details yet, only go through and fill out create an outline for the topics that I talked about. So I'm going to tell it what I want it to do, and then I'm going to say transcript, and I'm just going to dump in this huge transcript. So now we have a very long transcript. We'll dump in here, just check to make sure it's all in there, and then we'll go back to this session. And so now it's starting to extract out all the details. So maybe I actually want to make a deliverable for this. We'll let it finish up. Okay, so now let's say that I want to make a set of instructions based on best practices. So I want to make a deliverable that I can deliver to a nonprofit that explains what the best practices are for using AI. So at one point I explicitly talk about my 5 best practices, but there's lots of other best practices that I talk about throughout this transcript. And my goal is to create a document that I can send to a nonprofit and say, here are my best practices. So I want you to use all the information based on the transcript, to create a first draft of this document that would be a best practices for nonprofits. So here's what I want. It's going to use all the information from that transcript. And actually, and this is a good example. This is a good test. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try the same thing, but without the transcript. So I'm just going to go to ChatGPT, and without the transcript, I'm going to put the same thing in here. I want to make a deliverable that I can deliver to a nonprofit that is the best practices for using AI. We'll just stick it in here as is, right? So now one of these has everything I said, all my context, all my like human insight, and the other one is just straight up just AI generated. So it's saying, hey, you mentioned a transcript. I'm just going to say, I'm not going to give you the transcript. I just want you to create a deliverable that's the best practices for nonprofits on how to use AI. And then we can compare these results and see why it's so useful to include the transcript, which has like all of your human parts, like has all the parts that you are knowledgeable about. Align AI use with mission. Be transparent with stakeholders. Protect privacy. Keep humans in the loop. So that's good. That's a good one. Start small and experiment carefully. So, ultimate question, is this good? Would I want to send this to a nonprofit? Is this something that's going to be helpful to them? Let's compare that to the other version. Best practices for nonprofits. There's a little introduction. Core AI best practices. Give super clear instructions. Read and really reflect on AI output. Provide feedback. Use your voice. Know what good looks like. Strategic use of AI in nonprofits. Use AI where it matters most. Start with work you're already doing. Use human in the loop approach. So that was the same. Ethical boundaries and value-based use. Set and honor personal and organizational boundaries. So this is now mirroring the information that I think is most important, rather than just relying on AI to like do my thinking for me. This is now reflecting what I think is important in my values and what I think is important in a format that's more useful. And so that's how I'm using these transcripts to create deliverables. So that's level 2, right? Is using the transcript as input context. There's actually a trend going around in the AI world right now. It used to be prompt engineering, right? You need to learn prompt engineering. You need to learn prompt engineering. And so now what the new term is like context shaping or context input, where what you give AI, it's not about the prompt, it's about what information you're feeding it to be able to do the work that you want, right? Are you giving it your HR policies and then making a chatbot that checks against your HR policies? Are you giving it your brand guidelines and how you want to communicate your value to your donors? And then it's repeating back that. If you don't give it that input, that context that's valuable, that has all the details that you want it to use, then you just kind of get this like AI fluff and garbage back. So if you've been using AI and you're like, I don't know, it's cool, but it's just like not that useful, oftentimes it's not the prompt, it's the information that you're giving it along with the prompt that it's going to use to train itself on how to do the thing that you want to do. Okay, so I hope I've been sharing this whole time. I think I have. Okay. Now, next level, level 3. Now we take that, which is of medium use, right? If I could send this to you in a document, right? Or I could send this as a Word document, but now I'm sending you a bunch of stuff to read, which people are wanting to read less and less. And so what's another delivery method that we can use this to make it more palatable to the person that we're sending it to? Ultimately, we want to have them take action or be informed is oftentimes like the things we want after sending somebody something. And so I can send it to them just in a Word document. That's one way. But now I can also use this to create a custom website that is much easier for them to read and digest and take action on. So I'm just going to take this whole section, this whole document, which is just a bunch of words, and we're going to turn this into a custom website instantly. So we'll copy this. And so for this, I use the website Gamma. which this is where I had this like really, really jaw-dropping kind of like, what does this mean? So there's a couple different ways. You can just import an existing presentation that you have or an existing web page or an existing document. What I like to do is paste in by text, and that's where I'm coming out of ChatGPT into here. And I'm just going to paste this in here, and I want to make a web page from this. So let's generate from notes in an outline. How many cards do I want? We'll say 15 cards. We'll make it detailed, and we'll hit continue. I'll put this in my brand guideline, but I have different brand guidelines set up depending on what I'm creating for who. And then we'll just turn this into a website. And this was the moment where I was just like, oh, what does this mean? Right? Like, it's just taking this and like, so now how I use this personally is I use this to make custom proposals for working with people, saying like, when I'm talking to them, I'm trying to figure out like, what would this mean for your organization to have AI empower you? What would this mean kind of like from an emotional standpoint? Like, and oftentimes people will say like really dramatic things like, God, if I had AI and I could free up 10 hours a week, I would just get to spend more time with my family on the weekends. And that's what I want to like I want to know that and like be able to use that in the proposal. And so I'm making custom proposals based on what we talked about in the discovery. The other thing is how I do this is I use this for delivery. After I consult with someone, and during that call, right, I'm saying like, here are my key suggestions, and here are the next steps you can do, and here are my recommendations. Well, nobody was taking notes, but now I use the meeting note taker to create the transcript, to turn into to extract all that information and then turn this into the deliverable that looks like this now, right? And so it's putting AI images in here, which I don't really like. I can change this to, I can change the image to say best practices for AI for nonprofits. I can select like a different theme. We'll generate again and just see what it generates. I don't really like making AI images of people that don't exist. For some reason, it still just kind of gives me a little bit of the ick. So I'm avoiding that and just kind of like waiting to navigate that as we go a little further down the AI path. I don't know how it's all going to play out with kind of like copywriting and just like how humans feel about it. So it gives me a couple images. A little weird game board thing. I can say, oh, actually I want it I can change this model. There's lots of different models inside of here. So let's try this, and we'll do it in the theme of isometric. I've never tried this Imagen 4 Ultra before, so I'm not sure how well it does. There's lots of models in here. Mostly I'm not worried about the images as much as I am about like the copywriting and the text. So here's some more stuff for us to potentially look at. I also wonder, like, are we going to get really bored of this? Like these AI generated images just because they're like so commonplace? Like I'm curious if we will continue to just like be like, at some point I'll be like, yeah, I get it. It's AI generated. So here's creating a custom website in 5 minutes. Right? Now the last step always, I guess not always, but the last step I always recommend when using AI for anything is you got to really read it, right? This would be irresponsible for me to send to a client saying like, hey, here's all the things, right, without me checking it. So not only do I need to check it, I also almost always go and make tweaks. Is this what I want to send? Is this something I want to put my name on? And so I'll go and do the last little bits with my fingers and make those final tweaks to make sure it actually is what I want to send. Anyone have a feeling about this, or curious in the chat what comes up for you of how you might use this? How might you use this workflow from meeting note taker to creating the deliverable to using the website? How would this show up in your nonprofit work or the work that you're doing to support whoever it is you're supporting? So we process the transcript to use with Gamma, and then Gamma is basically just like instant websites. So, like I said, with every AI tool, there are wildly new ethical questions to consider. So, consent, right? So, oftentimes at the beginning of meetings, I will ask before bringing the meeting note taker in. I'll just say, hey, I'm using the meeting note taker. I just want to ask for consent before I bring it in. And that's just to normalize the process of, it's kind of a weird, clunky way to start. The other thing I've noticed, or one thing I don't like about it, is everything's on the record now. So how do I change how I connect and share when everything is kind of on the record, right? When there's a recording and a transcript of everything I say. What's the protocol for, hey, this needs to be off the record, right? I need to talk about something a little bit more sensitive. And so oftentimes what I'm doing is I'll wait about 5 or 10 minutes before I start. So just so we can do like the human part, right? We can just be like, let's just kind of like catch up and like connect as humans for a few minutes before getting into work. Once work starts, then I start the meeting note taker, and I probably actually, just thinking out loud, I need to also normalize that anyone at any time can ask to pause. And so that way, if there is something sensitive or private that we want to talk about, there's a method for somebody asking for that and then knowing that that has happened. Another thing is privacy, right? Kind of a big unknown. I was like, where are these getting stored and who has access to them? So inside of Fathom, if I hit share and copy this link, it's now anyone with the link can view it. So once I share it with somebody, it's kind of out of my control. Now there is a setting here for anyone in my organization can view it, or only people added, but then they need to register with a Fathom account, which for external people is kind of another big ask of like, oh, here's the meeting note taker, but also like you need to like sign up for a new service that they don't necessarily want. So I'm still kind of grappling with like how to share these, especially if there is anything that's a little bit more private or sensitive. And so privacy and consent is a big deal, and just kind of this idea of like having everything kind of on the record now. Just as a reminder, I've said it multiple times, so I don't really need to necessarily do it here, but these are my 5 best practices for using AI. And so where do you go from here? 3 things I always suggest. Number 1 is just start trying it, right? Try out the meeting note takers. Fathom is free. I think Fireflies is free. Zoom you already pay for, and I think the AI companion is used in there. So to understand how to integrate this stuff in, you just need to experiment a little bit.